Welcome to The More Perfect Union, the podcast that offers real debate without the hate, sponsored by BetterHelp.com. I'm Kevin Kelton, along with Greg Matusak. Hi, Greg.
Hi, Kevin. I'm sitting here with some of my favorite impeach cobbler. Is that that's a thing nowadays?
Yes, and Ward Anderson. Hi.
Hello, hello, fun folks. De Führer, it is America today.
Yes, indeed. What a week. You know, as I'm sure I'm not the first person to say, this is like 2021 telling 2020 to hold my beer. The week that we had could not have been anticipated by anybody, and yet it should have been anticipated by everybody. So where are we? Insurrection Reflections. What do you guys think?
Like you said, we all saw this coming. The only people who didn't see this coming were the Capitol Police, who were not prepared for it. We knew this was going to be a horrible day. We knew the Proud Boys were going to be marching. We knew this was going to be a terrible, terrible show. We should have been more prepared.
Yeah, I was caught by surprise. I knew that there was going to be a protest. I thought it would be 400 people, 1,000 people. I had no idea that they'd get 20,000 to 40,000 people. And I also didn't anticipate that the Capitol Police and the District of Columbia would be so ill-prepared. This is a massive intelligence failure on the level of 9/11, maybe worse, because with 9/11 you had people outside the country using, encrypted systems to talk to each other. Here you had people using Facebook, Twitter, and Parler, and our security services could not detect the threat.
The thing about it is, I expected something to happen, as in, I thought there might be, a clash between protesters and counter-protesters, or there'd be some kind of outrage like that. Not only did I not expect people to storm the Capitol, I didn't expect that many to storm the Capitol. I didn't expect it would be as huge as it was. And in the first few days after it happened, we didn't get a lot of video of just how many people it was. There was a lot of photos and stuff, but now more and more videos are being released that show just how huge that was. Like, yes, many made it inside, but just the fact that there were so many outside too that were still clashing and being held back. That was the surprise.
Yeah, I mean, ransacking offices, kicking in windows, knocking over police officers. This is supposed to be the party that is pro-police, Blue Lives Matter, and yet they were knocking them over with fire extinguishers, pushing them over. And the police were completely unprepared. There was no riot gear. Where was their tear gas? It was frightening.
They were just prepared for a regular day at the Capitol.
Yeah.
Instead of, this should have been an event on par with an inauguration. You're doing the Electoral College count that is being contested. Again, I just go back to massive intelligence failure. Go ahead, Ward.
Well, plus on top of that, a lot of people have said, talking about, they're going to erect a huge fence in front of the Capitol. They're going to put a fence around it and everything like that for the future. You guys, I don't know how many people don't realize this. There is a fence available for the Capitol. It's a 7-foot tall barrier fence that they pull out and erect whenever there's a large protest in town. Whenever there's some kind of a large protest in town, especially one they think is going to be controversial, they put up a 7-foot barrier fence around the Capitol, and they didn't do it on Wednesday.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. So here's a question I've been dying to ask you guys since Thursday morning. We now know that the House, the Democrats in the House, are very likely going to impeach Trump this week. We have people of both parties calling for Trump to resign. There's talk of the 25th Amendment. There's so much anger on the part of these Democratic and Republican House members and senators, it tells me that they are not just upset at the speech Trump gave. I think they know more than we do about what was behind the planning from the White House and how much coordination there was toward a violent outcome. I'm a little bit of a conspiracy theorist on this. I think that I think that Pelosi and Schumer and the rest of these people, they know something that we will find out in the weeks and months ahead about exactly what was going on behind the scenes at the White House.
I kind of disagree. I don't think that it really takes a conspiracy theory on this. I think we've seen pictures of the senators and the representatives in their gas masks because they were at one point ready to expel gas in the chambers, tear gas in the chambers. We've seen them huddled down behind their seats. We've seen them with Capitol Hill police officers with their guns drawn, ready to shoot anybody who comes in. They were afraid. They were, dare I say it, like school children in a lockdown. So a lot of them might have PTSD of, I think at this point, that's why they're angry. It's finally coming home because it's happened to them. They are finally experiencing some of this Trump madness.
Well, I mean, there is a lot of that. There's a lot to be said. Isn't that what people have always said about school shootings? That Congress would never take it seriously until the threat was on them, right? So a lot of people are saying that's what they're doing now. They're finally taking this kind of thing seriously. This finally matters to them because of the fact that it affected them. It actually came for them. What I hope is that finally Congress realizes something that one side has been ignoring for too long and the other side has been pandering to for too long. And that's this belief that you could keep pandering or ignoring, pandering to or ignoring angry, radicals or just how angry the right wing has become, and especially Trump supporters, and how that anger has been building and building and building. And we've been warned about it. The FBI has warned about it. The Department of Homeland Security has warned about it. And they've just acted as if it wasn't really going to happen. And so many of us have been waiting, going, these guys are going to go ballistic. They're going to lose it, and they're going to lash out, and it's going to be violent. And I think Congress, I don't think they ever thought it was really going to happen, or at least it wasn't going to touch them. And when it happened, it touched them, right? And so maybe now, finally, people are going, yeah, we caused all this by either pandering to it or ignoring it, and now here it is.
This is going to be an awful thing to say, but I only say it to make a point. I'm afraid that we were one or two shooting deaths shy of getting a real response to this. I think if this had been just a little worse, because this is not going to be the last of these. This might be the inciting incident for, a 5-year series of these kinds of attacks. They've already caught people that were planning to kidnap, Gretchen Whitmer, attack other government institutions. This is happening in state capitals on a smaller scale. Everybody now is talking about what could conceivably happen between now and Inauguration Day. And I won't name the date because I've seen other media people saying let's not give too much of a platform to their plans. But I think that there is a real problem in this country, as Ward, you were kind of saying, about this entire milieu that started as, pockets of militia movements and then became the Proud Boys. I think they're all coming together to create a real insurrection army. And I'm not saying that we're going to be at civil war, but I think that there's going to be a new paradigm that is countrymen becoming patriotic terrorists. It's short of civil war, but a lot worse than what we've seen. Yes, Greg.
Okay, so two things on that. About 2 weeks ago, I probably would have been like, "Oh yeah, I agree. I'm scared with you." But Pat Toomey, Senator Pat Toomey, was on, and a couple other people were on the Sunday morning, and they all kind of said the same thing, like, I'm all for Trump, except for like this past week or two. Then he went crazy. I don't know what happened. I can't defend him anymore. And I think that's the majority of the base and the Republicans right now. They're all like, oh, we're all for Trump. We're all for Trump, except for like these past 2 weeks. And that's taken a lot of the shine. The point being is, for the majority of these people, they don't want to lose their cable TV. They will not be on the run. You will always have outliers. You will always have your Dylan Roofs. You will always have your Timothy McVeighs. You will always have your Bombers. But, there is things we can do about it. If you see something, say something. But you're not going to have a insurrection of half the country following Trump, especially after these past 2 weeks, because, well, he's crazy.
Agree to disagree there. Not half the country, but I'm saying a lot more than solo individuals. Ward, you wanted to jump in on this.
Yeah, I mean, we're going down this path right here, Greg, with what I just said about Democrats, is that they dismissed it or ignored it or said, no, it's probably not that bad, or it's going to be a handful or whatever. This was thousands of people because they were there in the moment. If thousands of people in the moment would have reacted this way, then that tells me that there's millions across the country who would have, had they been there, who would have been a part of it. And that tells me that if you have millions of people who are sympathizing with this, which we do seem to have, that tells me that you can find thousands who are willing to commit acts of domestic terrorism or try something like this again. For years, the FBI and the Department of Homeland Security has warned that right-wing domestic terrorism is the biggest threat to the American public, right?
Yeah.
So this week we saw what happened, and that was mostly, not entirely, but mostly impromptu in the moment, right? I know some of the people there totally planned it. Absolutely. But I know a lot of people went along with it because it was in the moment. Okay? So what I'm saying is, if you have it like this, if this happened in the moment, thousands of people jumped in with, say, dozens of people who planned it or whatever, I don't think it's crazy at all that it'll happen again, because, let me just end on this, no real consequences have come yet, and most who were there will suffer none. There will be some who are obvious that are on video or whatever, but most will suffer none. So and we're still watching, as much as Republicans are denouncing it, they're still tiptoeing around it, trying to make these people seem understood, or that we need to hear them, more of this shit. So that's why I say, oh, it's going to happen again, because we didn't treat it like a terrorist attack. We still haven't treated it like a terrorist attack.
That's exactly what I was trying to make my point. This was their dress rehearsal. The target of this happened to be the U.S. Capitol, which is normally heavily fortified. But who's to say that, in a month or 6 months or a year and a half, the target won't be Twitter? Twitter must have a building someplace, and these people could be upset that Twitter, kicked off their guy. Who's to say it won't be CNN? Who's to say it won't be the kidnapping of a governor, or, they won't go after Nancy Pelosi where she lives? And that's my problem with what's happening this week. I don't think that this insurgency was quashed. I think it was given water and it could grow.
Yeah, so you're right. And there were people there who planned this. The people who showed up with zip ties, there were people who showed up with bombs. The guy who showed up in a car full of guns. Ted Cruz, he planned this. All those people should go to jail. And yes, Ted Cruz should go to jail. I have no problems. And I'm not just talking about Ted Cruz for the Zodiac killings. I'm talking about Thanks. I'm talking about just for spreading those lies. And Donald Jr. for hyping those people up like a crazy person on cocaine. And I never said he was technically on cocaine, just like a crazy person on cocaine.
this is something that hit me today, too. You know how Facebook has Facebook memories and it shows you things you've posted over the years?
Yeah.
So my Facebook memories today, I was going through them, and 10 years ago today, I posted on Facebook, it's always the people who spew the violent rhetoric who then call for unity after there's some kind of an act of violence. 10 years ago. And here's the worst part. This happens frequently enough where I don't remember what I was talking about. You would think that something happened 10 years ago that was significant enough for me to recall what it even was. And I don't know because, obviously it had happened within the past week 10 years ago, but I didn't say it in that particular post. So I don't know. This is something we've been talking about for years, and 10 years ago, we were talking about it, and I was already calling out Republicans for pulling the whole unity, let's not talk violence, blah, blah, blah. I was already calling them out for it 10 years ago, and nothing changed. And back then, we were saying this shit's going to lead to actual violence. It's going to get worse. More of this is going to happen. Stop it with the violent rhetoric. It causes this kind of shit. And for those out there who say that Donald Trump and others have not used violent rhetoric, that is bullshit. Giuliani did it that day. Trump did it that day. Trump Jr. did it on Twitter that day. I'm tired of this being told, where did this come from? It came right from their mouths. And an idea that, well, they didn't directly say, I've heard that one. Well, they didn't use the words. Oh, get out of here. Get the hell out of here. We've already talked about how the average Trump supporter doesn't even understand what his message is, and they have to explain it 6 different ways to you. You don't think that they hear all this and they hear, go out there and take what's yours? Of course they do. And they did. And it's going to get worse because they're not going to get better. This will go away for a week or two, and then they'll go right back to pretending everything is a war and using warlike language.
Yeah, against the Biden administration and the libtards and the Democrats. Exactly.
Yes.
So we had 6 people now pass away from this, right? Die. What am I saying? Die in this incident several days ago. And what I'm kind of hoping comes out of this is not as my Ohio Senator Rob Portman's like a bilateral, blah, blah, blah commission, because Rob Portman is a bastard person. But what I want to
commission, what is he asking for? A bilateral
commission?
To investigate the riots?
Yeah. Which takes balls, because he was one of the people spreading the lies in the first place. He was the cause. So don't get me started on Portman. But what I kind of want to know is, are we going to drag this out like Benghazi, where 4 people died? Are we going to have Trump up there for 11 hours? Or is this going to be...
He won't be up there for 11 minutes.
Exactly.
And speaking of Benghazi, take what happened Wednesday. Now put it anywhere in the world, okay, at a U.S. embassy. How do you think we would have reacted as a country?
Of course. It's exactly what happened at Benghazi. It's exactly what happened. They stormed the place. They killed 4 people. Here they killed 1 person outright, and then a couple of others, died of natural causes or whatever. But it was people storming a government institution. Of course, it's Benghazi.
Yeah. And I've heard people try to excuse that by going, well, that was in a foreign country. That's different. I go, this is worse.
Yes.
This is on our soil. This is worse than if it happens at an embassy in a hostile country. What the hell is the matter with you? This is worse than Benghazi by far.
Right. This is 1,000 times worse.
I'm watching, actually, I've got my TV on with the sound muted, and I'm watching it as we speak. And one of the things that struck me on Wednesday was everybody has seen that video of people scaling the front of the Capitol building, where the wall was built for perfect steps for somebody to scale it. I mean, the fact that they designed it that way is unbelievable.
Maybe they designed it thinking like, people are going to want to watch this, like the old Roman gladiators. They're going to want to watch Congress. So we should make it easier for them to climb up and just hang out on the top, like a concert where people can like sneak in by like climbing the fence and watching.
Maybe they were big parkour fans and they were like, parkour.
I mean, all of it is so frustrating because none of it should have happened. And the response to it should have been better on all fronts, whether it's from the U.S., from the Capitol Police, which, by the way, there's 2,000 Capitol Police that patrol 2 square miles, right?
But there's 2,300 of them. Only about 400 to 500 were on duty that day. They only had 20% of their staff in place.
But that's just it. There wasn't enough staff there. There wasn't enough security there. There weren't enough measures. The Republicans have been have been using violent rhetoric for years, but especially over the last 8 weeks. We saw this posted everywhere that they were going to do this. There are people who were there wearing merchandise, wearing sweaters and shirts that they'd bought online that actually say on it, the revolution is January 6th, 2021.
The people are on tape saying, I came here for the revolution. Listen, they had scaffolding with a noose set up outside the Capitol. That doesn't just happen spontaneously.
Yeah.
They were yelling, hang Mike Pence. There's video of 1,000 people maybe a couple of hundred people chanting, hang Mike Pence outside. This wasn't just a demonstration that happened to go rogue. Come on.
And I know everyone has jumped on this, imagine if they were black, or imagine if they were Muslim. And we all know if they were black or if they were Muslim, that it would have been a bloodbath, and they would have found a way to get more people there, and they would have opened fire. We all know that, and even politicians are admitting that. But now, for a second, imagine we go back to Portland, or imagine we go back to St. Louis, or any of the places where riots broke out because of Black Lives Matter over the summer. Imagine if Black Lives Matter had erected a gallows at one of their protests. Can you imagine what the reaction to that would have been? I mean, we watched people lose their minds over a Starbucks getting its windows broken. Can you imagine if they had a gallows? And then to try to diminish this.
Right. Or taking a Black Lives Matter flag and trying to take down the American flag and put up a Black Lives Matters flag.
Yeah.
That's what they did there. They tried to take down the American flag, the U.S. flag, and put up a Trump flag.
Yeah. And that's why, first of all, everyone, the three of us here and many of the listeners, if not all of them, know that that's a false equivalence and it's a bullshit comparison, the Black Lives Matter to this, okay? But just forget that for a second. Do not for 1 second try to take protesters and counter-protesters clashing in the street. Don't take that and put it on the same level as armed insurrection on our nation's capital with a gallows erected out front. They aren't the same.
Yes, but to the people that we're talking about, that, I won't say 75 million. I don't think that they're represented in the entire universe of people that voted for Trump, but some 20 million to 30 million people, they would say, no, actually, this was more righteous because they were fighting for our country. They were fighting to stop a bad man from having stolen an election, and these are patriots, and they were fighting for America, which goes to something that I learned this morning. Greg and I were talking about this just before the show, something called the Flight 93 syndrome, which I did not know this, but this is the way Republicans have been thinking about, or apparently a lot of Republicans have been thinking about their place in the political environment over the last maybe couple of decades, which is as the Democrats and people that they consider liberals or socialists, but as Democrats take power, they feel that the dire consequences to our nation, to our freedom, to capitalism, to everything that they love, to patriotism, they feel that that is such an existential threat that it's like the passengers on Flight 93 who should do anything and everything to get into that cockpit and take control. And that's what the Republican Party has been doing, both on the national level with politicians and then on the lower level with these militia types that we're talking about. They truly believe that their cause is righteous. And so anything that they do, including the deaths of people, is okay because otherwise the country goes to pot.
But you know what? It all just comes back to rationalization. It all just comes back to a rationalization. And my biggest anger in all of this, and the past 4 years, is watching as Republicans have this double standard. All the things that they claim matter to them don't matter to them when it's from their side or people that think that they're fighting for their cause. Right? It just becomes this, and worse, I'm not one of those people that slags on the media all the time, but to watch as we're still doing this, apologizing or trying to understand them because they're white people. And well, that's really what goes on.
Okay, yes. Listen, that's a reality, and we've heard a lot of people talk about that this week. I don't want to go too deep down that.
No, and I'm not trying to make it. And I'm not trying to make it say Black Lives Matter versus we already discussed that, right? But why is it when this happens like this, we try to understand them and we try to rationalize it and we try to go, well, this is the reason.
No, I agree. We have to get beyond that. We have to start quashing this thing. We have to put this thing down like a rabid dog. And by the way, I want to go back. You know when I think this started? I don't know that there's any one point, but it certainly bloomed into a full-grown, flower in the 1986 Iran-Contra hearings, when Republicans were caught trading arms for hostages and sending tow missiles to Iran and then getting cash for that and using it to fund the Contras. And when Oliver North was in front of Congress, he was caught dead to right for having been behind this plan. And they asked him about it, and he said, when I heard that idea, trading arms for hostages and taking the money that we get and funneling it to the to the Nicaraguan Contras, he said, I thought that was a right fine idea. That's when it began. When anything that you do for our cause is a right fine idea, even if it violates the Constitution.
So building on what Ward says, what I think has been really interesting is this week is that he's right. I've been hearing a lot of psychological, these poor gentlemen, their entire psychological profile have been broken down, and we really have to understand that these people are really victims of an elaborate ruse, and their fragile egos have to be
cognitive dissonance they must be suffering.
And to be quite honest, that is our NPR latte Volvo drinking, one earring, ponytail, liberal. Oh my gosh, I hate myself. I mean, we do that to ourselves. We love that. I'm listening to Richard Marx right now thinking, oh my gosh, how can I help the guy who's about to hit me with a rock? Maybe if he held that rock a little higher, or if he would lift it with his legs and not his back, he would be able to crush my skull. And that's what being a Democrat is every time. We try to help out everybody, including the people who are, wait for it, kicking our asses.
So, Twitter, I think, and Amazon took steps in the direction that I think we're all talking about this week. Twitter, by banning Trump in any form for at least for the foreseeable future, if not for life. And Amazon by taking Parler off of their servers. Now, a lot of people are saying, oh, but it's a free speech thing, and who are we to decide who gets to be on Twitter and who doesn't. No, you know what? These people are a threat to the country. We should treat them like we would if ISIS was on Twitter, and ISIS was using Facebook, and ISIS was using Instagram. It should be the same thing. Get them, the FUCK, off of there. I don't give a shit about their First Amendment rights because they're using their First Amendment rights to subvert every other amendment.
Well, that's just it. They don't actually have that right. There isn't the First Amendment right to be on Twitter, to incite violence, to do any of those things. And one of the things that's driving me crazy about that is this happens all the time. It's just like I said about the double standard earlier, that Republicans aren't concerned about these things until it's done by their side. And here's a fine example of that. We're constantly, every time something happens to a Republican who's, thrown off of something or gets in trouble for something or says something that gets them banned or gets them blowback, it becomes, oh my God, this is censorship, this is wrong, this is blah, 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 blah. But I can go through a list of shit that everyone's fine with, from the Dixie Chicks to Kathy Griffin, right, to you name it, to Colin Kaepernick, right, to that's okay. The NFL tried to ruin him because they're a private company and they could do what they want. Republicans only scream censorship when they feel they don't get a platform to say whatever they want. There are over a dozen social media platforms. Everyone keeps talking about this monopoly that Twitter and Facebook have. No, they have the most. Yes, they have the most users, okay? It's not a monopoly. You have a dozen different social media networks where you can go and spew whatever you want that has different rules and aren't Facebook and Twitter, but serve the same function. They're just not as popular. Not as many people are there, but they're available. This isn't censorship.
And you know what I find is a great irony this week, and then I'll throw it to you, Greg. I just want to make this one observation, that the only major platform that hasn't barred Trump is TikTok. Trump can become a TikTok sensation.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's crazy. One site that hasn't gotten a lot of play is something called Shopville. Okay, and Shopville is the site that actually sells Donald Trump's online presence. As far as the official Donald Trump store, they've banned him now too.
No more merchandise?
As far as I just read an article, whether it's fake or not, who knows? But I've been trying to. But yes, Shopville, one of the big Donald Trump campaign stores, they've banned him now too.
How ironic would it be that Trump and the Republicans were taken down by the free market? Out of all the things that have been tried over the years to squash this and to, really shed light on this and what they're doing, from the duplicity to the inciting violence to the lying to the American people about everything, like how ironic would it be if it's the free market that did what unfortunately Democrats have failed at doing time and time and time again?
Well, I love your observation, but I'm gonna go a little further. It's not the free market that has taken Donald Trump down. It's not the Proud Boy militia movement that has taken Trump down. It's not the Democrats and Joe Biden stealing an election that has taken Donald Trump has taken Donald Trump down. I have said on this podcast, and I have known since 2017, that this man was going to self-destruct someday. I didn't know when and I didn't know how, but I knew that given enough rope, he would hang himself, and this week he did.
Right, and in fact, Lindsey Graham said back in 2016, he said, if we elect Donald Trump as our candidate, he will take down the Republican Party. He will be the end of the Republican Party. And, say what you will about Lindsey Graham, but he's completely right. As of now, Trump is the kiss of death. Look at Georgia, for example. It was him backing the two Senate candidates that caused them to lose, if you ask me.
Okay. Well, we're far into our podcast and we still haven't talked about what's coming this week, which is the impeachment hearings.
Maybe.
Or the impeachment vote, and then the question of whether there'll be a Senate trial.
But door number 3 with him resigning. And remember, Nixon resigned when he realized that there were enough Republicans, the majority of Republicans, or there were enough Republicans to impeach him also, and he would lose everything. He might say, I think this might be the time to shuffle off to Buffalo.
You naive bastard.
That's not the first time I've been called that.
We're talking about two different Donald Trumps. There's no way in hell he is going to resign. That would be admitting defeat. The man can't do that. He couldn't even do it when he was legitimately defeated. He's not. He's going to ride this out for 11
Not
days.
a chance he resigns. Not a chance. This guy also, let's say for a second that Donald Trump is actually charged with anything, like such as people talk about when the state of New York comes after him or whatever. Donald Trump is certain that even if he's charged with something, that he's got the lawyers to delay this stuff for the rest of his life. He doesn't think he's going to jail for any period of time. He doesn't think anything like that's going to happen to him. He's not resigning. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, resigning would be admitting culpability, admitting he was a bad president, admitting he was the worst president in history. He's not going to do it. Now, the question is, and we've also pretty much, unless something happens, but in the next week, it's pretty doubtful that Pence is going to invoke the 25th or try to invoke the 25th. So the question is, should the Congress be going through this exercise that is not going to remove Trump from office because they cannot get the Senate to vote on this unless, again, there was some existential threat that Donald Trump started to pose this week? The Senate is not going to move on it. Do you think this is something that they should move forward with? Is it just a display of anger? And is it good or bad for the Biden administration if the House does indeed impeach?
Peggy Noonan said it best.
She always does.
No. First of all, Peggy Noonan and I have had huge issues ever since we had a terrible luncheon date, which ended awkwardly. Let's just leave it at that.
Okay.
I'm right here. Okay. I showed up. I'm sorry. I didn't know you were going to be there. All right?
I know.
Just
two gentlemen callers.
I
Who
actually
knew?
know a guy that dated Peggy Noonan once, but go on.
I would love to hear that story.
You know me.
So Peggy Noonan said it best. The Republican Party needs to be part of this, and they need to impeach Trump. They need to let everyone know, and they need to let that they are a serious party again, and that this is what happens when you kind of slag off at the end, and that they will not do a reality game show host ever, because this was ridiculous, especially after this week. It's the only way they'll get any credibility back. Now, whether their base sees it that way or not, but it's true. They're the laughingstock. They're going to lose every election from here on out.
Oh, no.
No,
they're not. You naive bastard.
Due respect, Mr. Matusa.
Someone just recently called me a naive bastard, and if I remember who it is, I'm going to kick his ass.
Let me tell you something. You know what they think? They think they just nominated and elected the wrong game show host. They're not thinking, oh, gee, what did we do? They're thinking, boy, we just fell 2 weeks short of the perfect scam.
Dude, Democrats are the ones that win elections and go, now it's time for us to really reflect on why we didn't win bigger, right, and try to really pander to the people that hate us. Republicans are the one that go, oh, we really just lost. Let's act like we won and keep doing what we were doing and even do it more so. I don't know where you think. Yes, they absolutely do. They act like they won. So there's not going to be any of that. And that's one of my issues with all of this that's been going on, is that unfortunately, you know what we're going to have over the next month or two? We're going to have more articles from everyone from the New York Times to USA Today to whatever, telling us how we need to understand these fucking people. There's going to be more articles where we got to go, let's talk to them. Let's get into their mind. Why do they feel this way? But we've got facts. Why don't they believe the facts? We got to do more of that. You know what you never see? You never see articles with Republicans having to come to terms with why they lost. Ever. I don't ever see those. I don't ever see articles where they've got to go, maybe we need to think that. Maybe we need to understand why the whole country doesn't like us. Or maybe we need to understand why we can't win elections with a majority of the vote and we have to rely on gerrymandering in the Electoral College. Never. You don't ever see that. But we will see articles about how we got to understand all these Trump people all over again. And we've seen it for 4 years. And the worst part of that is every time I read one of those articles, I would go, come on. This is bullshit. Just stop when these people come up and they lie to the reporters about why they like Trump. Stop reporting it like it must be true. We all see it, and this week showed it, and they're going to go out there and they're going to talk to those people again and go, we need to understand them.
Okay, yeah, I agree. And I want to circle back to the impeachment thing because here's my prediction, my guess. The Democrats in the House, maybe with a couple of Republican votes, pass articles of impeachment this week. Mitch McConnell doesn't move on them. He waits until Chuck Schumer is the Senate Majority Leader. Because why would Mitch McConnell want to oversee an impeachment hearing where he has to protect Donald Trump? He doesn't want to do that anymore. There's nothing in it for him. He might as well let it be Chuck Schumer's headache and let it take up time that would otherwise be used confirming Biden's appointees and cabinet. So what I think is going to happen, we could see a situation where Schumer inherits this, and as James Clyburn was saying on one of the morning shows today, they may push this back 3 months. They may just hold the impeachment trial in the Senate until March or April or May. They don't have to rush into it. And you know what? By that time, you may be able to get more senators ready to convict on the Republican side.
That's something I was talking about, too. I think you got a point there. What I've told everyone is they don't actually I think a lot of people don't realize that they do not have to impeach Trump while he's in office. It can come later. It can absolutely come later. And I wouldn't be surprised at all if they wait until after the transition when, you know, maybe opposing Trump isn't something that so many Republicans are pussies about. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, I think that they will pass the articles this week, but they don't have to hold the trial while he is in power.
Yeah.
Or he resigns.
You naive bastard.
Here's the other thing. People keep saying, well, you know, they should 25th Amendment him so he can't pardon himself. Let me tell you something. If Donald Trump intends to pardon himself, those papers are already signed. Just because you haven't heard about it doesn't mean it hasn't happened. And Trump isn't taking a chance that Pence and a couple of cabinet people behind his back might actually invoke the 25th. If he intends to pardon himself, he's already done it.
Yeah, but there'll be such a legal fuss up on that one.
Yeah, there will, yes. But I'm just amused at people who think like, well, he may pardon himself, so we have to do something to prevent that. If it's going to happen, it's already done.
My favorite tidbit from the Sunday morning shows this morning was that that Trump and Pence have not talked to each other since the Capitol Hill thing last week, and Trump hasn't called him and Pence hasn't called, so they've been like just not talking to each other. And Pence is kind of pissed off that
kinda.
Well, you know, Pence only has a very, very narrow range of emotions.
Yeah.
So it only goes from like mildly disturbed to mildly irritated. So he's like, this soup is rather salty.
Is there some story about how Donald Trump actually said to Pence, "We're not going to be friends now"?
I didn't hear that.
There
one.
was.
I read somewhere that he said something like, "We're not friends," or "We're not going to be friends," or something like that. So I'm paraphrasing, and I don't know for certain. So please don't hold it against me. But
so in the last few minutes, I want to take a little bit of a look at what at the coming Biden administration. He announced Merrick Garland this week for his AG. He is more president right now than Donald Trump is because he is leading on COVID. He is trying to mend the country. Donald Trump is in a bunker someplace like freaking Hitler. So where do you guys see this going? Does Biden hit the ground running? Does the impeachment get in the way? Or is there, another massive protest that disrupts the inauguration and throws the whole country into turmoil?
No, I think with Biden, once he takes office, the number one thing, of course, will be his COVID policy. Where right now the Trump COVID policy is they only release half of the vaccines out, and they keep half of them in, so that everyone.
The second dose, right.
So for the second dose, Biden's policy is release the Kraken. Release everything.
Get them into as many arms as possible. We'll give them the second doses when we can. And then the medical science is not even sure that that's necessary.
Well, they're pretty sure that it's necessary, but production will make it so. And that's the cool thing about America, USA, and Canada to some degree. We'll make them. We will make the doses. And that's the concept, is that we will get the doses once we'll ramp up even more production. I love that concept, is that we get as many people vaccinated as possible now. And I think that makes people feel a lot better. Literally, I haven't had a haircut in 8 months, 9 months. People literally call me damn hippie all the time.
I don't think you've ever looked better, frankly.
I know. You have a thing for damn hippies.
As luck would have it, you're equally unattractive in either way. But I will say this. My parents, January 20th is Inauguration Day, and my parents get their COVID-19 vaccine that day as well.
That's
very
fantastic.
Nice.
And you know who I think is getting the vaccine this week, if I've been led to believe correctly? My 99-year-old mother.
Yay! She's a sweetheart.
Hey, all right.
So that's some good news.
Absolutely. Here's to Kevin's mama.
Here's to all of our parents, and Greg, yours too. They should all get vaccinated. Absolutely.
They should. Trust me, I've been on my parents' ass to get vaccinated.
And with that, I want to thank you guys, because I thought this was a great conversation, and I always enjoyed talking with you, even though we give each other a little, shit here and there. You guys are really funny, and you're really witty and informed, and I love talking to you. And I want to thank everybody for listening. If you enjoy what we do here, follow us on Twitter, because we're still allowed there. And on Facebook, where we're also still allowed. And don't forget to share our link with your friends so they can find us too. Please tell them about us. And if you would like to join our political debate between shows, we're in a group called Open Fire Politics and Entertainment. Look for it in your Facebook search engine. We're all there, and we'd love to see you there too. And going into Impeachment 2.0, Greg Matusak, is it Impeachment Cobbler this week, or what are you going to be enjoying?
I actually am going to spend my week trying to figure out what you've been spelling. You spell so quickly. I know it's S-H-I something. I don't know. I can't spell. What are you doing? You and your mysterious ways.
Well, I do that so you won't understand it.
I know.
Oh, you illiterate bastard.
You beautiful illiterate bastard. You gorgeous
beautiful
illiterate
bastard.
bastard.
Beautiful, naive, illiterate bastard.
That's going to be the episode title.